All right, guys, welcome to the personal brand archetypes that women love. Now, listen, stick with me if you want to see how your DMs could be looking like this. Now, when I say brand archetypes, I am not talking about your content pillars. So, fitness, lifestyle, travel, that is not necessarily an archetype. An archetype is more so how your personal brand is represented through these four factors right here. And up first, it's going to be your personality. So, usually through initial impression of somebody's Instagram, you can almost see how that person is. Are they more introverted? Are they more extroverted? Are they a life of the party sort of type? Or are they just kind of reserved to themselves? You get a sense of somebody's brand personality. And we're going to go through examples here moving forward. But also, it encompasses your lifestyle and your environment. This kind of goes hand in hand. Your lifestyle may be going to the gym and going to work. Your lifestyle may be traveling and trying new adventures and new experiences in dope restaurants. But also that equates to your environment. I personally have noticed that a lot of these really good brand archetypes usually live in pretty dope cities. They live in major hubs. They live in Dubai, Miami, LA, so on and so forth. It's rare that I've seen a really solid personal brand archetype that lived in the middle of nowhere. Like it rarely happens. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it rarely happens. But do keep in mind that's going to go into sort of the brand archetype here. And also the last thing which is going to be your point of leverage. Something I've discussed quite in depth before, but what this really entails is the things that makes you unique, the things that make you stand out. Is it your style? Is it your physique? Is it your face card? Is it your hair? Is it the way you communicate? Is it your skill? Is it your subject expertise? This encompasses your total brand archetype. Now, like I said, we're going to review the top three I have personally found that women respond the most to. So up first, we have the classy rebel. And I have some examples here that I want you guys to really reference and even go to their IG pages to really see in depth what I'm talking about. So up first, we have the Logan Duyong. I actually just met this guy. But when I first initially came across his profile, I was like, who is this dude? You know, like it was very, very intriguing. And it almost has that sort of Dan Blazerian, fast-paced, young lifestyle sort of vibe to it. And let's go ahead and break down all the aesthetic elements, the appeal, the personality of this sort of classy rebel sort of archetype. Their motto is really like live fast, die young. You know, that James Dean effect with the sunglasses, the cool sort of a swaggy vibe. Also, if we notice their aesthetic, it tends to be a little bit more darker thing. They showcase a high amounts of sex appeal through their outfits, through their styling, and the content in itself just tends to lean a little bit more cinematic. It's not like super low effort. Everything is very intentional and curated. Also, these people tend to leverage really, really dope locations. Another example we have here is Jack Hop Fitness. You guys have probably watched some of his videos too, but he definitely leans into that sort of classy rebel archetype on IG. Also, these profiles, they're usually with women. So as we see here, Logan's with a girl. He has some other stuff with girls on there too. Jack isn't afraid to show women on his profile. We don't know if he's dating them. We don't know if it's, you know, a casual thing or whatever. Point is, he's showing almost like this playboy lifestyle, this fun, on edge. Also with her captions, they tend to be very punchy, like very quick, sometimes a little witty. And of course, they have usually guns of some sort. Now, we talk about the personality here. This is purely the edgy guy, the bad boy. They showcase a lot of high charisma. And like I said before, it's almost like a pseudo Dan Blazerian sort of thing. If you guys followed Dan Blazerian back in like 2017, 2018, almost this sort of vibe, but just with less women, I would say, for them. So that's why it's kind of like pseudo. Now, we got to talk about the appeal towards women, because I'm not going to lie, like this has a unique appeal towards both men and also women, especially younger women. So at first, because they have sort of that bad boy personality and that charisma, and they kind of showcase a really exciting and fun lifestyle, it really appeals to younger women because they just simply give off that rule breaker energy. Also, excitement and adventure. Whenever you look at this guy's page or this sort of archetype's page, it makes you almost want to be a part of their life, right? That's why when Logan followed me, I immediately had to hit follow because like I was curious about what this guy does and how he does it, the life he lives. It just seems very exciting. And then also I would say pre-selection. The fact that they show themselves with women on a consistent basis, from a subconscious standpoint, could make other women more comfortable with being a part of their lifestyle. But it's usually for like fun and a short-term casual basis. I'm not saying that you're going to find like a wife or a girlfriend following this archetype. It's possible, but it tends to lean more towards casual encounters. Up next, we have archetype number 2, and this is the Bougie CEO. All right, so as we see here, first we have the David Hunter. So David, off initial impression, just looking at this 3 pictures of his grid, we know that he's a leader of some sort, probably a business owner, almost given like Batman sort of vibes, right? On a boat, he just has that look to him. So let's talk about sort of their motto, and that is they're on a mission and they see a vision. As simple as that. They're working towards something and they're almost in a sense documenting it, just more so showing the journey while also having elements of a unique aesthetic and luxury tied into it. When it comes to their aesthetics, they're almost usually business casual or semi-formal, as we see David right here. Also, another example is Oliver Forslund. Oliver used to actually have this like fitness-dominated archetype, being like a personal trainer. But I would say over the past 2 months, he's sort of like pivoted into like this Bougie CEO archetype. I also think Iman Gadzhi has this sort of vibe too, and he has made it really, really popular amongst this, internet business space. They tend to be seen a lot with like jets, boats, cars, and of course cigars. Like cigars is a non-negotiable when it comes to this. And then also in terms of how they're being represented through the camera, they tend to usually be a little bit more serious. Exception here is Oliver in some of these pictures, but for the most part, they're not going to be seen smiling, smirking, trying to look sexy. That's not the case whatsoever. They're trying to be they're really just showcasing themselves as that businessman and that CEO. Also, their captions tend to be longer, more focused on like mindset and motivation. Now, in terms of their personality, sort of like what I mentioned here, the James Bond sort of vibe, they give this like Bond-esque sort of look. Either that or Batman. A nice suit, cigars. And you might be thinking, doesn't this really appeal to men? And I would say out of the archetypes we've described and listed, this does appeal to men more so in a motivational aspect compared to like maybe this. Like this definitely appeals to men too, but way more to women versus this. A lot of like aspiring entrepreneurs or people who want to get their careers right might look up to this particular person. Also within their personality, they showcase a good mix between work and pleasure and capturing that. As we see here, we see moments of them working, but also at the same time, we see moments of them relax and just enjoying their life. Now, in terms of female appeal, the first one we got is it comes off really, really high status. Whenever you show that you're a leader of men, that you're working on something, that you're on these boats, that you're, running some sort of organization, it shows a degree of competency. And competency is attractive and it positions you in a higher status way. Also, resources and provider. I mean, if you definitely want to give off husband or boyfriend material, this is one of the ways to do it for sure. Usually these people are also going to nice dinners and, networking, having meetings. So it just shows that either they have the resources now to provide a great future or they're working on the resources now to be a provider in the future. All right, so the next archetype might actually surprise you, and I call it the Prince Charming. So the Prince Charming, this is like peak female gaze. This guy either intentionally or unintentionally just appeals solely to women. So the first few archetypes, their following is probably 70, 80% male, and then maybe 20 to 30% female, versus this guy, the Prince Charming, his following, I guaranteed you, is about 80 to 90% women. He has a sort of motto that he was drawn by a woman. And he may not even admit this, but it is the absolute truth. All his content simply appeals to the female gaze. And I think a very, very good example of this is Jalen Noble. Jalen mostly does videos and reels, but his aura, his demeanor, the way he speaks, the way he goes about his content, it is purely for the women, the huz, as the younger guys say. It's purely for the women, guys. So let's sort of talk about their aesthetic here. So up first, it's a lot of storytelling, showing your routine, showing yourself, fixing up something, doing a DIY project, maybe a grooming routine, or what you're working on, or how you're curating like your living space. Basically, you're telling a story through video. Also, in terms of their aesthetic, it does tend to have like a sort of warmer sort of vibe. Another example is this guy right here. I'm not going to butcher his name, so you can go check it out right there. This guy primarily posts pictures, but even then, it has this sort of female gaze, aesthetic, Prince Charming sort of vibe to it. And that's because it tends to be a lot more warm versus like really cool. These other ones, like, is very like masculine, rugged, versus this, we might see some candles in the background. Also, pets, grooming, and decor. Women love dogs. Women love decor. Women love a man who takes care of himself. And so they're usually implementing all these characteristics within their storytelling and within their reels, and just using it as like leverage to more so appeal to the female gaze. So in terms of the personality here, they tend to be a lot more soft and relaxed. You're not going to see the crazy gym pictures. You're not going to see like workout videos. You're not going to see, bicep veins ripping everywhere. That's not what they're trying to do whatsoever. They're trying to almost like show this like soft guy era, tuning more into like the emotional side of them. And then also in terms of their appeal, this is almost purely boyfriend/husband material. Just a woman looks at their content and wants to be in a relationship with them. I'm sure maybe they can still get some casual encounters here or there, but for the most part, a woman looks at them and wants to see a future with them. But the archetype, it does work. It does appeal to women. Now, as an honorable mention here, I'm going to say the GQ lookbook. This is something that I primarily built my Instagram archetype around, and that, a lot of people who follow me, and including our clients that we work with, sort of start off with until they start to find their own brand identity. But I would say the GQ lookbook is very, very easy to implement, because all you have to do is just dress nice and really take portrait or scenic pictures in nice environments. Another example here is Coach Felipe, who is one of our coaches in our Digital Romeo mentorship program. And Felipe, as we see here, he kind of is revolving around the GQ sort of lookbook. I find these pictures tend to be more popular on the Explore page. They're easily shareable. And especially if you have the face card and you look nice, you're really honing into your personal points of leverage. So that's what I've been doing for the longest time. However, me and Felipe, we are kind of experimenting and testing new things out, because guess what? A lot of guys think that this is only for women, but it's not the truth. This also works for men in terms of like networking, in terms of like more opportunities, in terms of business. You can really craft a personal brand to really be anything you want while still attracting all the things that you want. All you have to do is pick something authentic to you. And also keep in mind, you can blend and mix different archetypes. It doesn't have to be like a set sort of archetype or personality. You could experiment and test and blend things out. But if you want me to personally help you out with this in terms of learning and identifying your archetype, building your online presence, including on dating apps and social media, then click the link down below, schedule a free consultation call. We'd love to see how I can personally help you out. And we've done this for plenty of clients at this point in time now. So if you are a guy who's tired of being on the sidelines and seeing everybody else sort of take this step on social media, I encourage you to book a call and see how we can personally help you out. All right. See you guys in the next video.